Good morning and welcome to another post-cabinet press briefing. It's Wednesday morning, July 26, and I want to welcome the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Favour Williams. Amazing law you passed yesterday, removing Section 24, which now prevents the courts from sending children who are not charged with a crime from going to a penal institution. I'm sure you'll be telling us more about that when you come to the podium. We'd also like to welcome your acting permanent secretary, Dr. Maureen Dwyer, and also your acting CEO, Dr. Kassan Troop. A lot of doctors in the house this morning. Also want to welcome members of the media here and also our support staff from the Jamaica Information Service and PBCJ, and also you, our viewers, who are watching and listening online. I want to start off with a few cabinet decisions. At the beginning, we'll start with board appointments. Cabinet gave the approval for the appointment of Ms. Carmen Johnson as an ex officio member of the St. Anne's Bay Regional Hospital Committee with effect from July 10, 2023 to the 2nd of April, 2026, when the board will expire. There was also the approval of the following persons to the Pharmacy Council of Jamaica for a period of 2 months, and that's Dr. Eugenie Brown-Myrie, who is the chairperson, as well as Mr. Ron McNally, Ms. Lily Claire Bellamy, Ms. Cynthia Lewis-Graham, Dr. Ernestine Watson, Dr. Lisa Bromfield, Dr. Michelle Russell, Dr. Winsome Christie, Dr. Diana Newman-McKenzie, as well as Mr. Hugh Roy Thomas. There was also the appointment of persons to the board of the Norman Manley International Airport Limited for a period of 3 years from July 17 to 2023 to the 16th of July 2026. And that's Mr. Linton Johnson, who is the chairman, Mrs. Andrew White Walters, Ms. Paula Brown, and Mr. Wayne Strawn. We also had the approval of the appointment of Mr. Walter G. Melbourne as chairman of the Building Appeals Tribunal in place of Mr. Shane Dallin, who had left the post. That appointment is from the 17th of July 2023 to the 20th of November 2024. Cabinet also gave the approval for the hosting of the International Atomic Energy Agency's regional meeting on networking and cooperation among regulatory bodies in the Caribbean member states in Kingston from the 8th to the 11th of August. As it relates to travel, we also have the approval from July 17 to 18 and 19 to 20, which is passed, of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also accompanied by the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. This was in relation to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to Brussels, Belgium for the 3rd European Union Community of Latin American Caribbean States, CELAC Summit. And for the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, it was to the 116th session of the Council of Ministers of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States. There was also approval for the Ministry of Tourism to New York on July 4 for the Economic and Social Environmental Sustainability in Tourism at the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development. As it relates to contracts, we gave approval for the provision of garbage collection and disposal services for 617 public educational institutions. That's from the Ministry of Education to the National Solid Waste Management Authority to the sum of $240 million. There was also the award of a contract to Fast Enterprises, LLC, for the provision of maintenance and production support services for the GenTax Integrated Tax Administration System by Jamaica with customization and site-specific development. And this was approved by Cabinet after going through the processes to the tune of $3.5 million US, or approximately 560 million Jamaican dollars, excluding GCT. We also had a contract by the National Health Fund to KPMG Jamaica for the provision of external auditing services for the period of 3 years to the value of $90 $12,869,000, including GCT. And finally, we have the award of a contract for the supply and delivery and the commissioning of a 128-sliced computerized ICT tomography unit for the KPH. And we can also announce that another ICT machine was also recently approved for the Cornwall Regional Hospital, and that will be announced by the Minister of Finance in short order. Those are the decisions of Cabinet, and at this time, I would like to welcome Minister Delroy Chuck, who is joining us this morning, to give us some further updates, after which we will have Minister. So we'll go with the lady first. You're such a gentleman. Ladies before gentlemen, Honorable Favour Williams, you may join at the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me acknowledge colleague ministers, Minister Nestor Morgan, the Minister Chuck. Let me acknowledge as well Dr. Maureen Dwyer, our Permanent Secretary Acting, Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer Acting, other members of the Ministry of Education and Youth, members of the media. Let me say a pleasant good morning. Today is a new day for the child care and protection ecosystem in Jamaica. Today is a happy day, as the law passed in Parliament yesterday will, when it comes into effect, offer a kinder and a gentler environment for Jamaica's children who are experiencing behavioral challenges of such a nature that their parents or guardians would take them in front of the court as being uncontrollable. Oftentimes, that child would be sent to a correctional institution. The amendment in Parliament yesterday will put an end to that. Instead, 19 years after the Child Care and Protection Act was approved in Parliament in 2004, we're finally here in this moment in time. This government has taken the Child Care and Protection Act to Parliament and repealed the bedeviling Section 24. Going forward, following the assent, the child will be assessed by a competent behavioral specialist. That means a child who the parent or guardian regards as having behavioral challenges would be assessed by a competent behavioral specialist, and a care plan would be agreed having regard to the results of a social inquiry report and a psychological or psychiatric report. The amendment of the Child Care and Protection Act includes the repeal of Section 24(2), which will enable Jamaica to become compliant with its obligations under notable international treaties on child justice and child rights, and establish a fairer and more equitable means of treating with cases involving children exhibiting behavioral challenges, thereby promoting the best interest of the child. And we're particularly pleased as well because we're ready for the law to come into effect. And Minister, I don't know if we can show the video of the therapeutic center. Only last month, the Prime Minister opened the first of its kind.
Protection and Family Services Agency created this therapeutic center. So in response to the many reports of behavioral issues from our children, it is the first center of its kind in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. And of course, we are extremely pleased and proud to have this center now available. So if you're a parent or a guardian with a child who is exhibiting behavioral issues, we ask you to call 211. Make a report and we will take it from there. Once the report is received by the National Children's Registry, the NCR, then the team of investigators will go into the field and investigate to ensure the accuracy of the report. Of course, this comes in with the Ministry of Education's transformation, where they would like to see the transformation of the children with behavioral issues in the schools. And so everything ties in with our parent ministry in terms of our approach and what we want to achieve at this center.
Absolutely, and that is just the beginning. That is our first non-residential therapeutic center. We also have a residential therapeutic center in St. Anne that is ready, that's outfitted, that have the necessary specialists there as well. In the event the behavioral challenges are of such a nature that it would require us removing the child from their environment and putting them in a place where they have access to these professionals and they can avail themselves of it. And in time, the objective is to have them in such a space that they can be reintegrated with their families. We're also not stopping there already. We're scouting out 2 other locations because we want the access to be granted to all Jamaicans, regardless of where they are. We don't want it to be concentrated just in Kingston or St. Anne, but to be in other parishes as well. And so it's a great day. We're delighted for this moment in time when we're able to bring other services into our child care and protection ecosystem. And as you heard on the video, it's all part of transforming the education sector to the extent we have children who are well adjusted, children who can come to school, they are present in school in terms of their mindset and so forth. We will have a better education system. I move on now to another announcement of which we are immensely pleased, and that is the announcement that Cabinet approved the expanded staff structure of 832 additional posts for the University of Technology. This is a big deal for the men and women of UTech. And in order to understand why this is a big deal, you have to go back to September 1, 1995. The then College of Arts, Science and Technology, CAST, was conferred with university status and renamed University of Technology, Jamaica. It was given its own act, which was approved by Parliament on June 8, 1999, and signed by the then Governor General on June 29, 1999. As a result of the new university status, the UTech Act, requirements of the University Council of Jamaica, and requests made by governments of Jamaica, successive government, UTech made several upgrades to its programs and structure, consistent with those mandates to support national development. So what were some of those requests by government? In March of 1999, UTech was required to take over the general training of health professionals. This was transferred from the Ministry of Health. Then you had the requirement for UTech to take over the training program for registered nurses. Then later, the Ministry of Health transferred the remaining training programs for midwifery, critical care, nurse anesthetics, anesthesiologist. And later, UTEC was also required to take responsibility for the government of Jamaica's dentistry and dental auxiliary program and public health workers by taking responsibility for the West Indies School of Public Health. So over the years, it took on all these responsibilities, but never got approval for the expanded structure since 1995. So it has grown not only the student base, the number of programs, and so forth. So here we are in 2023. The university offers some 117 programs across 9 faculties. On average, 12,421 students are registered in these programs. 909 staff serve in the 9 faculties with approximately 500 academic staff facilitating the delivery of the university's programs. We have an additional 505 staff members who were employed to serve departments critical to the effective administration of the institution. After much work, after much effort on the part of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and the Ministry of Education and Youth to do what was required, to do the assessment of the staff and all of that, we're finally here where Cabinet was able to give approval for the expanded staff structure and the current operational pay plan. This has been a long-standing issue for UTEC over its history since 1995, so I'm extremely delighted that this government has taken the steps necessary to regularize the staff structure, giving confidence and certainty to a situation that has been allowed to meander since 1995. I'll conclude by saying that I know that there is still much work to be done, but we are committed to working with UTEC in its continued mission to expand access to tertiary education for our students. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would love if you would, I don't think the public has a full understanding of the work that has been done within the child care sector over the last 6 years. I think you should probably mention the creation of 211, the audits that you have done with the children's homes, the setting up of a task force for the reform of Maxfield, and several other initiatives that you have done over the last period.
So Minister Morgan, you're saying it all, right? I'm sure Jamaicans have not forgotten that you were at the Ministry of Education and Youth responsible for the child care and protection sector, and many of those initiatives were started when you were there. It
right.
just took a lot of time to get them done, but one by one, we are doing it. The
Definitely.
211 number is an easy number for everyone to remember.
For free.
For free. You can call to report child abuse, and that's a number that is well used. We have professionals who answer the phone and respond. We also did the survey or the assessment of the
Children's
institutions.
homes,
Yes, but we have to move from there now to creating the physical structure and getting more professionals into the child care and protection sector.
And the recent increase in the salaries of social workers, significant increase, will assist you in encouraging more persons to
come
get into the children's sector.
Right, absolutely. And we're hoping as well that by the strong signal from the government about the care and protection of our children, especially those that are experiencing behavioral challenges, by laying out the pathway that says we will be responsible for doing the assessment of these children. We will utilize the services of trained professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, to help us to set out a care plan for these children, that professionals, Jamaicans in the diaspora who are professionals in the field, Jamaicans here who are professionals in the field, will also be encouraged to enter the field, offer their services as well.
So we'll now request members of the media who are interested in asking questions of Minister Williams, and then after that we'll have Minister Chuck who will join us. So do we have any questions for Minister Williams? All right, so now we'll have Minister Chuck who will be joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Morgan. And I just want to begin by saying that Minister Williams and I work very closely. We are working closely with restorative justice so that all the schools can participate and benefit from restorative justice. But what is not well known is that the Ministry of Justice also have two other programs that assist children. That is child diversion and victim services. And we have victim service offices in every parish. And we are now equipping these offices to cater to children with the assistance of USAID and UNICEF. So if you look at the victim service offices in, say, Portland and Manchester, they are as nicely equipped as the residential service that was shown a while ago, so that parents can indeed go to victim services with their children and get assistance. Moreover, child diversion has been a great success story which we have not yet told. The restriction, unfortunately, with child diversion is that the child has to be referred to a child diversion officer by the police or the court. And where those referrals take place, we not only have psychological support and testing, but we have mentors, most of whom are justices of the peace, to assist these youngsters. What we hope to do is to expand the act to allow referrals to come from the school guidance counselors and also from parents who have troubled children, that the child diversion program can assist them. Indeed, the child diversion program is one of the areas where the judges have been begging us to expand because they have seen that it has been so successful to get children who, for one reason or another, have been wayward on the right path. And we have so many success stories of children who actually give testimonials how happy they are with the mentoring that they get from Justice of the Peace. And the challenge that the Justice of the Peace then have is that the child doesn't want to leave the continued relationship. And they do continue with the child, mentoring, assisting them in many ways. I just want to change and say that yesterday we passed in Parliament a constitutional amendment to allow two officers, the DPP and the Auditor General, to be able to retire at the age of 65, moving from age 60. This was a process that was recommended from 2016. When the pension bill came to Cabinet on the 25th of July 1916 to be exact, as recorded in the minutes of Cabinet, not only did we approve the bill to go to Parliament, and it was passed in 2017, but the records show that the recommendation was made for the two constitutional offices of the DPP and the Auditor General to be moved from 60 to 65 so that they too can benefit from the increased retirement age. Unfortunately, the matter sat in the Ministry of in the Ministry of Finance, and only in recent times, Cabinet directed And to be fair, the Minister of Finance looked at it and said, this is a constitutional matter. The Minister of Justice should do it. And Cabinet mandated that I should take it on. Once I got it, I really pushed and got it done immediately because I thought it was important. I'm very, very disappointed that the opposition and others should impute any motive why this amendment was done so quickly. It has been on the cards from 2016, 2017. And regrettably, for the leader of the opposition in Parliament to impute that there are 6 parliamentarians who are being questioned from reports of the Integrity Commission, and the Director of Public Prosecution can overrule what the Director of Corruption Proceedings in the IC can do, is so unfair and unbecoming. The Director of Public Prosecution, during her tenure, has exercised professionalism, integrity, and commitment to her work. And I find it most unfortunate that any imputation at this time should be directed at her. And I think the leader of the opposition, by making and speculating by his comments, has shown his leadership to be questionable and his judgment to be extremely poor. And I hope he too should stop that speculation as to why this amendment is being done and speculating about the Director of Public Prosecution. She has never shown in any of her rulings that she has been partisan, political, influenced by any outside forces. And to hear this imputation against her office is quite unfortunate. The amendment allows both officers to retire at any time of the age 60 because they were appointed when the retirement age was 60, so that they can take advantage once they reach the age of 60. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll take it. Yes.
Thank you very much, Minister Chuck. Thank you very much for that presentation. We are opening the floor now for questions to Minister Chuck. Is there anyone who wishes to ask a question?
Morning, Kimon Francis from the Gleaner. Minister, who made the recommendation for such a change, and why was the opposition not consulted as suggested by Mark Golden?
The recommendation came from the pension unit. I chaired legislation committee. At the legislation committee meeting, when it was pointed out to me that the 2 constitutional rules could not benefit, and then I took it to Cabinet, and the minutes, as I said, noted that the recommendation was made from then.
Minister Chuck, I think you should go a bit further, because while I was not in Cabinet at the time, Cabinet decision, the 25th of July 2016, when the Public Pensions Act was being discussed in Cabinet, Cabinet did note at that time, 2016, it was 7 years ago, that it was noted that the proposed change in the age of retirement to 60 to 65, I just want to reiterate it, with regard to the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Auditor General would require constitutional amendments and require treatment. The reality is that the decision to change the age of pensionable persons in government was not made by one administration. This is a national policy that has benefited from many years of study, many years of deliberations. We tabled the bill in 2017, but the work did not start there. It spanned administrations stretching back as far back to Bruce Golding's administration. To bring the Auditor General and the Director of Public Prosecution to the same level is actually a good policy and the right thing to do. So, which is why we're very surprised by the strong objection to the DPP. In all the conversations, we have not heard any strong objections from the opposition about the Auditor General, which raises very serious concerns from us, especially based on statements by the leader of the opposition yesterday, statements that you probably could listen again. And we find it very troubling, but we are very confident that the policy that has been established for many years ago was good policy, and we're very happy to execute it.
To complete the answer to your question, my understanding, in fact, is that the pension unit actually had discussion with both officers some years ago. Why it didn't come eventually to Parliament, I don't know. The question is a simple one of age. Do you raise it to 62, 64, or 65? The framers of the Constitution in Section 96 and 121 deliberately in that subsection 1B and 21(1)B made it unnecessary to have consultation or even to have the support of the opposition, because all the other subsections of 96 and 121 demanded support from the opposition. So you can see it's a simple issue. I don't think there should be any disagreement with that.
Thank you. Do we have another question?
Morning, Minister. Hal Schoenberg, Radio Jamaica News. I know, Minister, you're strident in defense of the tenure of the DPP, but reports reaching me are that not every member of the governing side voted in favor of the extension. Is there division within the government ranks as to the extension of the age?
With due respect, that's not true. It may be that some members were not present in the chambers, but no one voted against it.
Against it, but did not vote in favor.
Yeah, but not being in
Everyone
the chamber.
in Parliament, no one abstained.
Right. The fact of the matter is, there is a large number of government members in Parliament on a regular basis. Not all persons will be in the chamber at the time for voting. And that's a normal. I have missed votes because I am outside of the parliamentary chamber, performing other duties, ministerial duties and otherwise. So I do not know where that is coming from.
Issue. The recent brouhaha, if you can call it that, with the statement made by the opposition leader when he was on Sunday and the subsequent reactions. This is an issue which would have been in the remit of the political ombudsman, I believe. So what is being done to ensure that things like these are addressed by an agent or agency of equal power?
Here again, I'm a little disappointed that my commitment to have the political ombudsman subsumed in the Electoral Commission has not yet been done. The cabinet submission to have it done was put together a few months ago, soon after I made that commitment. That submission is doing the musical chair, if I might call it. Ministers know what I mean, that it goes from to all the stakeholders, then it goes to the Attorney General chambers, then it goes to the CPC, to the law reform, before it finally comes back to me to sign off and to go to cabinet. So you don't draft cabinet submission where we want to subsume the role of the political ombudsman into the Electoral Commission. And for the last 2 or 3 months, it has been doing, as I say, a musical chair. But I'm hoping that it will be done in due course.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes, Minister, just a follow-up. I think a few years ago, I can't remember the year right now, the DPP had an extension, yes, received an extension. Why was the issue not sorted at that time? Why was the Pensions Act not amended at that time?
Well, you know,
and also, why the rush to get it through the Parliament?
I think I mentioned that. It's quite clear that it should have been done quite some time. My understanding, as I said, is that the Ministry of Finance did start some consultation with the office holders, and that bill, which was piloted yesterday, is really a function of the Ministry of Finance because it deals with retirement age and pension. So that all along I have been asking about it. And finally, when the Minister of Finance, who has been extremely busy over the last 2 years, as you know, finally got his attention, he told me and Cabinet that this is a constitutional matter. Please let the Minister of Justice do it. And this, I say, was in recent times, and that was why I have picked it up. One of the few bills I have to take to Parliament, I rushed it.
Kimon, don't you find it interesting that there are two constitutional offices that are impacted by this amendment, two very important constitutional offices, but the conversation is only about one? Why is that so? Why is no one asking about the Auditor General? Is it that no one cares about increasing the age of the retirement for the Office of the Auditor General? And that's why we find it so fascinating, the conversations. Because even in the press release released by the opposition, they didn't even mention the Auditor General. And that's something that I think members of the media should do a little bit of checking on, as what is the motive why the Auditor General is not mentioned any at all, except yesterday when they came to Parliament, as a side.
My understanding is that, and it was in our papers this morning,
Right.
Former opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips wrote to the Prime Minister, I think in 2019, 2020, and he gave a reason for objecting to an extension for the DPP. And I imagine it's on that premise that the current opposition leader is standing.
Let me say something. I've been Minister of Justice for the past 7 years. The amendment allows the DPP to retire right now, anytime. I would be very disappointed if she did not take the opportunity afforded by this amendment. Why do I say so? I have said it before. I have found her to be a person of integrity, professionalism, and definitely has lifted the role of prosecution in this country. If no one can say, as Minister of Justice, I have ever tried to influence her, much less judges. I know my jurisdiction. I know my role. So that I can say that I would be very happy if she continues, because she has demonstrated that she is a professional, she is open and transparent, she responds to any question about her rulings, she gives good authoritative reasons for her judgment, her rulings, and I'm quite proud of the work she's doing.
Thank you. Is there another one? Shane?
Mr. Morgan, to you. The Minister of Gender had said that the Sexual Harassment Tribunal, the members would have been brought to Cabinet for approval. Was that done? And what can you say about the recent issue with the Prime Minister's travel to Brussels, where we hear that he suffered an ignominy in his travels?
All right, let me address the first one. Or you'd want to take on the one about the tribunal?
No.
The tribunal was brought to Cabinet, and I'm sure the Minister will be making an announcement very soon. So all things are working according to plan as it relates to the tribunal. The Cabinet has already made some decisions on it based on the recommendations of those involved. There's no ignominy that the Prime Minister was subjected to. You know what is interesting, Alshane? We've had two situations recently where persons have tried to use the media to embarrass the government. I'm not blaming the journalist, but there is clearly an attempt, a strategic attempt, to undermine what has been one of the strongest foreign policy efforts of any government since 1962. The work of Kamina Johnson-Smith and Andrew Holness in foreign policy, the evidence shows, has been stellar. There was no war or argument between Jamaica and the United States, but yet it was published based on anonymous information that there was a big spat. The US came out and said nothing no go so. We came out and said nothing no go so, but the conversation still maintains. A clerical person at the Jamaican embassy overseas made an error on a form, which caused the Prime Minister, instead of going through one door at the airport, to go through another door at the airport. And we see it going around that the Prime Minister had to take off his shoes and be searched, when nothing like that happened. It's not the first Prime Minister, or even the first time this Prime Minister has had to go through a different route through the airport. I traveled the Prime Minister for many years, and there were occasions where we had to take a different route. Why is it now all of a sudden that we're seeing these stories coming out, which are not borne out in fact? There is absolutely no evidence to support the stories about issues between Jamaica and the United States, when the reality is and the fact is there are no issues between Jamaica and the United States. I hope that addressed your question. Thank you very much. Do we have another one? Oh, Kimon, you're running the marathon today.
Haven't been here for a while.
You need to come more often. I like you being here. You asked some very important questions.
All right, Minister, so the government and the U.S. have both said there is no issue, there is no role. What we have not heard is whether or not an application was made re a diplomat's spouse.
Well, they said that there was no such application. Didn't they say that?
Where?
I'm sure I read where the U.S. said that there was no issue with any diplomatic spouse. I'm sure I heard, I think it was a weekly press conference, and correct me if I'm wrong, by the State Department, where they dismissed that argument. Now, I cannot speak on foreign affairs effectively because I am not privy to the documents and correspondence. My main point is that Jamaica and the United States maintains one of the strongest bilateral relations that we've ever had in a very long time. There's always an open door policy. The minister engages with our partners. The ambassador in Washington engages with our partners on a consistent basis. It is unfair to Jamaica for persons whose interest I will not enumerate at this podium to seek to undermine that relationship, where we are now have to be fielding hundreds of calls from members of the diaspora concerned about the relationship based on a lie. There is no spat. And we are government. But the impact that these rumors and misinformation has is not just on the Andrew Holness administration. It has impacts on regular Jamaicans who live in the diaspora and also Jamaicans here. So when they spread these lies, Kimon, and they think they're hurting just the Andrew Holness government, no, they're hurting their fellow citizens. I got a call yesterday from a radio station in Florida saying that they really need to talk to someone from the government because people are panicking because of these rumors. Think about the damage that that is doing to the country. So the next time they come to you guys with a leak, you need to ask them for the evidence. You need to call us so we can have a voice in the issue. Don't just run with the lie, because the damage is not just to the government, it is to every single Jamaican. So there is no spat, there is no issue. From time to time, we have negotiations on a myriad of issues that never come into the public domain, but you don't hear about them.
Minister, I just want to be clear. I want to hear in your words that no request came
I am
from
not
the US.
in possession, as Minister of Information, of any documentation regarding that matter that you're asking about. I would have to consult with the Minister of Foreign Affairs to ask whether there is such a request. But based on all the conversations I've had, there is no issue between Jamaica and the United States. Whether there was a request or not, that is something that I would have to verify with the Minister. And I suspect we're at an end. But before that, Kimon, I will double check and I will speak to you throughout the day to confirm or deny your question whether there was a request. I want to thank everyone here. I think the lesson for today's post-cab is don't follow rumors. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here at the post-cabinet press briefing. I want to thank the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Justice, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, as well as Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education and Youth, Maureen Dwyer, the Chief Executive Officer acting at the Ministry, Chief Education Officer acting at the Ministry of Education as well, Dr. Kassan, members of the media, various team members. We also see representatives from the Child Care Protection and Family Services Agency as well. Want to thank them for joining us. Thank you all, those who are watching, those who are listening. Until next week at 8 a.m. sharp, we always try to be on time for another post-cabinet press briefing. Have a wonderful day.